Hello, welcome to the Town Manager Download, a podcast about local government and the town of Shrewsbury. I'm Kevin Mizikar, the Town Manager of the town of Shrewsbury, and as always, I'm joined by the Communications Coordinator, Taylor Galusha.
In today's episode, we're going to be joined by Patty Sheehan, the town's building inspector, to discuss the responsibilities of the building inspector's office, highlight some of their accomplishments from the past year, and take a look forward to what they hope to achieve in fiscal year 2026.
What's going on, Taylor?
It's been a while.
It has been a while. Sincere apologies to our regular listeners for the delay in recording episodes.
Yeah.
But it's 2025.
New year, new us.
New year, new us for a couple weeks at least.
Yeah. So
Well, we got some good episodes planned for the next few
do.
weeks. So excited about today's episode with Patty Sheehan and then what's coming in the future.
Yeah. So what have you been doing in your time off?
Just
From the podcast.
Normal time off from the podcast, not so much work.
Yeah.
I'm just doing normal holiday stuff. So we did some fun things with the family over the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Snowport one of the days, which is pretty fun. Interesting setting, a lot of people. It was after Christmas,
Yeah.
but it was still really busy, which was surprising, but cold.
Yeah.
Good food.
It's a little cold.
Have you been there?
Yeah, I went actually the weekend it opened.
Okay.
So it opened, I think, the week before Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
So I went that Saturday or Sunday.
Yep.
And it was crowded, but not as insane as I've heard it could
Yeah.
get. I was able to get like a couple Christmas presents there for my sister. I got her like a felt embroidery kit. So like
Nice.
instead of it being like string, it's like felted. It seemed like up her alley. I don't
Good.
know. She seemed to like it. It had sheep on it
Nice.
because Ireland. So. The hot chocolate was expensive though.
Yeah.
That
No, I
got
didn't
me.
stand in that long line.
Yeah.
I heard it's good though.
It was good. It
Good.
was just a lot
Yeah.
for hot chocolate.
I'm not like I don't have a lot of historical context of the Seaport, but I was really impressed with all the shops and how
Did
much
you
is
go to
going
the
on there.
F1
I did not go
arcade
in
across the street?
I didn't go in there. I
You
went to
didn't
Starbucks
like you didn't
across the
like
street.
run out run out while they were in there.
I
Go
wanted
do
to.
the simulator.
I didn't have willing guests with me.
Okay. I've heard good things.
Yeah. No, I hear it's awesome too. What else is going on? Anything?
I don't know. I'm just excited for 2025 and
About what? Anything good?
I don't know.
Specific?
I'm excited to did like a 25 and 2025 list. Not like goal, like some of it's like goal oriented, but like not necessarily. Like I just kind of like want to refocus on like some of my hobbies, like reading, finish like my knitting projects that I have lined up, and just kind of like, I don't know, just be more conscious about how I spend my time outside the workplace.
That's a good
Which
idea.
is something I thought about like over the last month.
So there's some things on the list of 25 that you're going to do and some things you're going to stop?
Yeah, well, I mean, one, I want to like, I guess one of the stopping ones isn't really, but just like being more like conscious shopper
Yeah.
with the things like I purchase and own.
So
Try
it's
not-
a wide variety
Yeah,
of things.
like I want to stop accumulating things. I've moved several times in the last 5 years, and every time I move, it seems like there's a few more boxes.
Because there are.
So I'm trying to be more mindful about those type of things. But
Got it.
I'm excited. I feel like it's going to be a good year. So
Cool.
I went to New York City
Yeah?
before Christmas, the week before. Saw a tree in Rockefeller. It was very nice.
Good.
A lot better than last time I saw it. It was super full.
It's because
And it was from Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I
that's
was
where I was
wondering.
getting there. Yeah,
Yep.
it's like Massachusetts grown, so I
Yep.
had to go see it.
Yep.
Went to a Lego store. That was cool. Went to the Nintendo store. Also cool. And we went to an all gluten-free Italian restaurant, which was really nice for me because of my recent food
Yeah.
things that I've been going through. Is like the best pasta I've probably ever had though. And it
We'll
was
share the name.
gluten-free.
You remember it?
Oh, Senza Gluten on Sullivan Street.
Okay.
So, very good.
Awesome.
That's all. That's the only two things I did the whole time we've been gone.
Well, that sounds fun. It's good stuff. What's up in the shrew?
Oh, you beat me to it. I wanted to like give residents like an update on some events that planning is going to be holding. They're more like outreach sessions. So on the 23rd of January, they're going to be holding like a feedback session on the hazard mitigation plan. For people that don't know what the hazard mitigation plan is, it's a plan I think we have to renew every 5 years or so, that kind of like outlines like some natural events, natural disaster events that Shrewsbury might be more susceptible to, and then how we can work to mitigate like impacts on the community with those type of things. So that's going to be at the Senior Center at 6:30 p.m. on January 23rd. And then they are also going to hold like kind of like an update question and answer session about the Complete Streets project that's going in on North Quinsimmon Avenue. So also for people that don't know, Complete Streets means that they're looking to install sidewalks, bike lanes, and kind of just like refine the layout of the road to make it more like multimodal friendly. And that's going to be on January 15th at 6:30 p.m. at the Shrewsbury Public Library. So I think those are two great opportunities for people to give their input on those two projects, because technically they're both very long lasting for the community, and love to get feedback and answer questions on those.
Nice.
So what do you got for us?
Well, we're in the throes of the budget development process. As we've talked about this time of the year, it's really important. We're right in the middle, actually. Department budgets are due in a week from today. So we're providing any support that we can on that. And then that really sets our priorities and goals and everything as we start the fiscal year 26 budget process, which culminates in town meeting in May. So we're well into that cycle for the next 5 months or so. And then, interestingly, for the second time since the current form of government has been put in place in 1953, the referendum provision under the Representative Town Meeting Act has been triggered by more than 5% of the voters signing a petition to reconsider the action of town meeting, which was, in this case, approving zoning to bring the town in compliance with the MBTA communities law at the state level. So that special election will be held on February 4th from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. and it's a ballot.
Yep.
So folks can go to the ballot box that day and cast their vote. And in short term, they'll also be able to reach out to the town clerk's office to get a mail-in ballot if they're unable to vote that day or would like to vote.
And if they're voting in person, it's at their regular polling site. Okay.
At their regular polling place, just like any normal state or local election. Everything would be the same, except for it's just the one question associated with town meetings action.
Can residents expect things like that give them more information?
Yeah, so there's a voter guide that will be mailed out at least 10 days in advance of the election, which again is February 4th. So we encourage everyone to go out and vote. That voter guide will have an opinion of what a yes vote means and a no vote means from groups that are organized and advocating for those various positions on this. I think the whole concept is really interesting. When we went from an open town meeting and all registered voters had the authority to cast votes at town meeting, when they changed that form of government, all the voters held back, the full authority of granting it to the representative town meeting and set up this referendum process. So it's a really unique part of our local government here in Shrewsbury. Gives all voters the opportunity to reconsider town meeting action if called upon by greater than 5%. It's a really big threshold to overcome, because at least 20% of registered voters will have to vote to overturn the action of town meeting in order for it not to remain as it was voted by town meeting.
Right.
So I think an appropriate amount of extraordinary effort needs to go into this process, both at the ballot box and to get the signatures, because town meetings actions, is the primary way that decisions have been made by the legislative body since this form of government was put in place. So it kind of makes sense. Like think of, vetoing or overriding a veto or changing or amending a constitution or something like that. Those are extraordinary steps it's not a normal operation of the government.
Yeah.
So this is very much similar to that. So we'll see what happens on February 4th. It's actually, caused some special meetings of the select board to make sure we get the timing right. The board's been very responsive to the process. And we'll see how it plays out on February 4th. But
Very
otherwise,
cool.
I think that's what's been going on in town, and looking forward to having a great conversation here on the Town Manager Download with Patty Sheehan, who serves as the building commissioner for the town of Shrewsbury, and very active in her professional community, and does a great job in securing life safety of current and future residents through the work that she does. So without further ado, let's have Patty Sheehan join us here on the Town Manager Download. Well, welcome to the Town Manager Download, Patty. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to be here.
Sure. So as we do with all of our guests, we'd love to have you talk a little bit about your career into local government and how long you've been with the town of Shrewsbury and how you chose your career path and things related to that. So why don't you dive in on that?
Sure, yeah. So I've been with the town now for 28 years, but I fell into this position, not really planning on this path, but I went to WPI because I enjoyed structures. So I went to WPI, I got a degree in structural engineering. And then, after graduating, I did the design work, went to Boston like most young professionals do, and worked for a design firm there. After some time, a former professor of mine became the head of inspectional services for Worcester and asked if I would come back and be the plans examiner there. So I stayed in Worcester again for a while. And then as things progressed, I had a second daughter, so 2 young children. And at the time, I was going back to school part-time at Worcester State University to get a master's in secondary education, and thought I was going to transition and become a high school math teacher. But that didn't happen. But I do have a daughter who is a high school math teacher. So
it worked out.
Yeah, so it worked out. She's in Boston. But so anyway, I then was kind of taking a break, and my neighbor, who was the former building commissioner, needed somebody part-time. So it just kind of happened out that I started out working 16 hours a week. And as the town became, of course, being more developed, the job expanded, and I kept increasing my hours. And then in 2010, Ron Allery, who was my predecessor, he left. He was with the town for 40 years. He left, and then I became the building commissioner in 2010. And ever since then, it's been a lot of, continuing changes in the department, and it's been really a great position that I kind of fell into.
So, Patty, let's maybe clear something up for me or folks. So, building commissioner, building inspector, what's the title?
Yeah.
What do you prefer? How does it go?
Yeah, so I do so building commissioner and inspector of buildings, those are equivalent.
Right.
So, but the local inspector or assistant building inspector. So they're 2 different licenses, they're 2 different levels. So you do have to have a commissioner's license through the state. We're licensed by the state in order to run the department.
Okay.
Yep, and sign the certificates of occupancy.
Sure. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's required for the COs
Yeah.
specifically. Got it.
Yeah.
So let's kind of stay on that topic. Let's talk about the responsibility of your entire office. What is it that you do, and in what context, and how does it work in Shrewsbury, and maybe more broadly, and at least in Massachusetts?
Sure. So we are responsible, all the inspectors in the office are responsible for enforcing the state building codes. And then, of course, we have our local zoning bylaws. So that's primarily what our work revolves around. But we have, Joe Riley, plumbing and gas inspector. So it's a state plumbing and gas code. And we have Dale Blue, who's our electrical inspector, who enforces the National Electrical Code. Alex Moriarty and Melissa McDonald, both of them are the assistant inspectors. And they primarily are involved in the residential permit review in town, and also have been doing the annual inspections for the establishments that serve liquor. That's required by the state. And so together, all of us, work together to review all of the permits and provide communication to applicants, in a timely manner, answer questions for the residents at the counter, and basically just make sure that we are properly educated on the code and the code changes when we have them.
So maybe even starting like with the counter itself, like what's a typical day look like in the office for you? And, when folks are coming to the counter, like who is it? Is it residents? Is it contractors? What's a typical day look like in the office for you all?
Yeah, I actually am having except for coming here, I'm actually having a pretty typical day, nothing out of the ordinary. So in the morning, I have my early morning arrivals that come in as my electrical and plumbing inspectors, and they're in early. And right away, they always have a list of topics that they want to talk with me about. Always that they went to a project yesterday, or they see this permit application and they have questions about it, or how should they write a response to something. So we start off by reviewing those questions first off in the morning. Then I have a very timely visit from our assistant town manager, Keith Baldinger, and he comes in and we actually have questions back and forth for each other. He'll have 2 or 3 questions for me, and I will also have questions for him. So usually it's a very lively conversation. We're talking about code, zoning, enforcement, communication with other departments. And it's really a good way to start the day to work with both Joe and Dale, the inspectors, and with Keith, because I feel like we've accomplished a lot right away and got a lot of information passed between us, because that's the best way to manage projects. And then as the rest of the staff comes in, things kind of fall into place, responding to emails and the voicemail messages and permit review from everything that has come in the day before. But the typical question that we get at the counter is, we did have a couple that came in today. A resident would like to move his business. He sees a piece of property where there's already a building there. He'd like to know if it's properly zoned for his type of business. How does he go about, putting in applications? He does need a zoning board application. What does that look like? And what does it look like if he's successful with the zoning board? How does he submit a building permit application? So that was a question that we had come in today. Some people come in and say, I submitted a permit, but I don't know the status. Maybe they're not as familiar as how to look up the status of a permit online. So we'll go in and help them out and show them what the status is. Maybe some additional information is needed, and we'll explain that to them. Also have phone conversations with projects that are underway. Today I did have a conversation with the project manager for UPS. He has submitted permits. They're in the draft format, and so we have to get them the next step. How do we actually get them submitted so that we could get that review going? So that's typical
Big and
of what
small
happens.
projects.
Yes, big
And
and
everything
small.
in between.
Yep.
So do you see like building permits, are they mostly pulled by professional, like licensed contractors versus individual homeowners, just generally speaking?
Yeah, we have a lot of homeowners that would like to apply for their own permits. And unfortunately, the building codes have become so cumbersome, and there's so much more involved, that even for a permit to maybe put on an addition or renovate your bathroom or renovate your basement into a finished area, really there is a lot to it. So we provide as much guidance as we can, because homeowners that live in their home would like to do that type of work themselves. So we spend a lot of time providing the information that they would need in order for them to get started. So for residential, we see a lot of homeowners submitting themselves.
So maybe we can turn and talk a little bit about the various codes right now, but just, in working with you here in Shrewsbury since I've been here a little over 7 years, I know codes seem to be getting, as you just mentioned, so much more complex, and they seem to be changing so much more frequently than maybe they have in the past. Maybe that's my perception, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and just, kind of what is a building code, Patty, and what's the purpose of it, and how do you and your team enforce that?
Sure. So the Mass General Law requires that every municipality enforce the state building code. So you have to have someone, a commissioner that will enforce the state building code. So we're required to do this by law. So the building code is a regulation that is made by the Board of Building Regulations and Standards. So it's a regulation. There's a board that makes the code and gets the code implemented, and then distributes it across the state to all of the building officials. The purpose of the code is, to simplify it, is life safety. We want to make sure that, we have the proper foundations, the proper structure. Mechanical ventilation is all very important elements of a building. So as the codes over the years have gotten, they've gotten more cumbersome, as I keep saying, to enforce, is because I'll have to say that the energy code has changed more quickly than other codes. Since 2009, the energy code has been changing very quickly, and more so than the base code. And now, of course, we have a whole other regulation that has been implemented by the Department of Energy, that is implemented by the Department of Energy, however, given to the building officials to enforce. And it's had a very big impact on homeowners that want to do addition or renovation to their existing homes, making it more challenging. Fortunately, there is a code change that has been proposed, still waiting to hear when it may be accepted and go into effect, that will give a little bit of relief to existing structures, to existing 1 and 2 family dwellings for alterations.
So let it grandfather in those
Yeah, they'll
homes.
kind of lessen the restrictive requirements that you have to meet, because it's been in effect since January 1st of 2023. And since that time, the state has seen many variance requests, and they've granted them.
Okay.
So if they're granting them, then they see a need for the change in the code. So hopefully that will come out soon, because it does give a little bit more leeway to accessory dwelling units, which, as you know, will be something that will be implemented February 2nd, which is another regulation, 760 CMR, that the building officials will be enforcing as soon as we get permit applications. But we had a lot of questions about accessory dwelling units.
I feel like accessory dwelling units may be a whole episode in the future that
We'll have to
we'll
talk
have
about,
back on,
yeah.
because I think they're going to be very interesting, and in a community like Shrewsbury, we may have greater impact or see more of them. But yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to watch. But so Patty, if you could kind of look back from, maybe the beginning of 2023 or well, let's just say current date, back 10 years, and you look at the energy code. I know it's really complicated because it's all based upon this HERS rating, but how different is it from 10 years ago right now? How much more onerous is it on a builder or a developer to, meet the energy code today than it was, say, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, whatever your perspective would be?
So in the past, we had something called prescriptive construction. We still have it now that applies to certain construction types, but when you built a single-family home, you would have prescriptive construction, meaning that you have to put certain types of insulation in your floors, walls, and ceilings. And if you met that, that's great. You just write that on your plans, you install that in the field. You also had to have windows that meet a certain energy value as well. So that, and really just by providing those values, you could actually put that on your permit application and kind of move the permit application along, satisfying the energy code requirements. But now what you have to do is, as you indicate, a HERS rate, or a home energy rating system, is that these are people who have training in order to make sure that the whole envelope of the building meets the energy code requirements. And basically, we also have addressed air exchanges, maximum air exchanges for the energy code as well. It also involves the HVAC systems, mini splits that are also being installed as energy saving devices. All of this is part of the energy code and has complicated things much more so for a single family homeowner to be able to understand.
So it used to be able to say, look, here's my building permit. I'm putting R26 in the attic and R26 in the walls, and you kind of check that box. But now you're
Right. Now we're looking more.
assessing the building as
Yep.
it's being built.
So the whole building as an envelope. And that's why the energy code that did go into effect January 1st, 2023 says if you put on an addition or renovate your house, you also have to apply that to your whole house.
Okay.
And that's what's making it cost prohibitive
Right.
for people to do that type of work.
Because you'd literally be opening walls and
Right.
It's just a bigger
And changing your
obstacle.
heating system as well.
for the rest of the house, not
Right.
just your addition.
Right.
So you think there's some changes coming down the line for that, or those are
Yep, so there's changes coming down the line, not for new, not for new one or
Sure.
two family dwellings, but
Right.
for alterations, additions, and for the accessory dwelling units.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Right.
okay?
Yeah. So it would be great if we could have that information before February 2nd. Yes.
What are your thoughts on accessory dwelling units? How big of a challenge, generally speaking, do you think that's going to be for the department to oversee, and do you think
Yeah.
it's something a lot of people are going to pursue in Shrewsbury, just anecdotally?
Right. So right now we're in the public comment period, which ends Friday for the accessory dwelling units. And so I do think that the regulation that's written is something that's very much enforceable.
Okay.
However, there's one section about the measuring the gross floor area of an
Right.
accessory dwelling unit. And as it also compares, it can't be more than 50% of the principal dwelling on the property. So there's a little bit of, there's some questions around that about the size of the unit, and also whether the unit is detached or attached to the one or two family dwelling. If you have a two family dwelling and you wanted to add an accessory dwelling unit, adding that other unit makes it a 3-family unit. And by building code and fire code, it has to have a sprinkler system.
So if it was attached to a
Yeah.
two-family,
Gotcha.
okay,
Right.
But if it was separate from a two-family,
If it was
wouldn't.
separate, right. The other thing that I'm sure we'll be looking at very soon with our planning department is that if it's detached and you want to put it in the rear yard, then we have certain setbacks that have to be met.
Right.
And that may be very restrictive because typically we have a 40-foot rear yard setback, and a lot of people don't
It's like
have.
how far, how
Right.
close is it going to be to the house or,
That's-
or
yeah.
the primary unit at that
Right.
point?
So we don't know. It'll be more that setback. The rear yard in particular, I think, is going to be
Right.
very restrictive.
Even the side too.
The side too, if they wanted to put it on the side.
Like,
Right. So, yeah, so all of this reviewing the accessory dwelling, we do have on January 28th, we are, before the select board's meeting, we are going to have an ADU presentation
Okay.
from 5 to 6 o'clock. So that's one of my topics with the assistant town manager this morning, is to do it in the select board's room. And then we will be inviting Deputy Chief Kevin Weigold, the assessor Ruth Anderson will come in, and DPW Director Tim McInerney will be coming in as well.
okay,
And we're going to talk about, things that are outside the regulation that say fire department access still has to be reviewed. What about the water and sewer connections? What will that be like for an accessory dwelling unit? How will it have the address? Because it's a different unit, and the fire department or police department still has to find that unit with the proper address. So we're going to hold a little information session because we've been getting a lot of questions like, what if I do this? Or what if I, add it here, and trying to navigate those questions because people are trying to plan ahead.
yeah.
who do you think the target audience for that would be? Is it homeowners, contractors, both?
Yeah, I do think it's mostly homeowners right now.
Yep.
Right. So we have a contractor right now who is working with a homeowner and actively designing something for them, and it's on a 2-family dwelling.
Oh,
Yep.
again, a complicated one.
So it'll be a
right?
sprinkler system.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, I appreciate all that detail and background, certainly on your office. Patty, I know you play a larger role in the profession here in Massachusetts and even beyond at some points. You're the president of the Massachusetts Federation of Building Inspectors, which is a state entity. So can you talk a little bit about the Federation and how that's played into your career and, what the goal of it is and what
Sure.
you do there with them?
Yeah, so I got involved in the Mass Federation of Building Officials about 6 years ago because I attend, building officials have to have a certain number of continuing education credits in order to maintain our license to the state. So I went to one meeting and said, "Oh, what is that?" It's another meeting that someone would always stand up and give a report on what the state was doing. What laws are, being proposed that would impact the municipalities in the jobs that we do. And so then all of a sudden I became president. So
It's always how it happens.
it was. So I went to a meeting, and that's how it happened. But the involvement has been very rewarding because you do get to know things, kind of firsthand. I get to talk with the Commissioner Mahoney, who is the Commissioner Division of Department of Energy, and Commissioner Wilkinson, who is the Commissioner of Division of Licensure, who licenses us. And I get to work with my colleagues. There's 32 of us across the state that form the MFBO. And we have meetings with the commissioners, and we tell them what it's like in our communities, what types of questions we're getting, how they could help us to make things better, provide better training, and how certain codes that are being proposed may be problematic or how they may be helpful to us in our community. So it's great to have a voice with my colleagues and to be able to meet with them on a professional level.
Yeah.
And so that has been very rewarding. And then through that, I also was appointed on the Board of Fire Prevention, which doesn't make the building code, but it makes the fire code, which are two separate codes.
Right.
And I'm the building official that sits on that board that represents the state. And that is a very interesting board because I get to hear appeals when an applicant cannot meet the requirements of the fire code. I get to sit with a couple of colleagues, usually a 3-member board, and we get to hear different projects and decide, about variance requests and talk about how the code impacts different projects. Right. So it's been really a very rewarding thing for me to do and to take another step in my career. But I also have transitioned to teach. I'll start teaching at the Worcester Vocational School in the evenings.
Cool.
Just one night a week. But I'll be at the Worcester Vocational School teaching the 10th edition of the code, which is our new code that will start in February.
You're going to slot any high school math in there for them?
I know. I know, right? Yeah. So
I'm sure there's a lot of math involved in that to start with.
No, but it's really great because I think as I've been teaching over the years, I get a lot of students that English is their second language.
Okay.
And so a lot of the terms that I think are just common knowledge, they'll just say, "Slow down, please. Can you tell me what that means?"
Sure.
And so I get to use my teaching skills.
That's awesome. That's a great skill to have.
Yeah.
So, continuing kind of things outside of the regular office, one of the things that I've enjoyed watching over the last few years, Patty, is kind of the way that you've kind of really embraced providing teaching and better access and understanding throughout the community, and really engaging with the community and others in the building trades with the work of your office. So can you talk a little bit about that work that you've done, some of the sessions that you've held, and some of the outcomes from it and why it's been important?
Right. Public outreach, right, is one of your things, too, that you both do. And I think that making our departments more accessible and have the community know what we do is very important. So we started out with almost every department involved in land development with that, homeowner basics. And you helped us out with that, too. And everyone, each department had a few slides, and we invited, homeowners and realtors to come in and say how our departments impact you as a homeowner. And I thought that was very well received. So we actually did just this past December, we did certificates of inspection, how to apply for a certificate of inspection, because we wanted to make sure that it's timely, that business owners had to apply if they have a liquor license, if they're a place of assembly, how to know how to do that online, because it's the first time we're doing it with our software system. So then on January 14th, we're actually going to be doing another one about how to apply for a building permit online, to know, again, how to use our online system. And our online system as a tool, even to do research for people who are doing research on their own property and want to see what their permit history is. It's very useful to them. So we're going to provide that on the 14th. And then our ADU presentation will be on the 28th of this month, as I was mentioning. And then we're going to wait until April because we're hoping that we do have all of the changes to the energy code. Yeah. And then we're going to present the residential energy code in April. But you're helping us, publicize it, and then the library was helping us as well in getting enough information out there so that we would get, some participants and hopefully also have handouts for people if they miss it.
Great, yeah. Awesome. And I know there's been a lot of great attendance at those events, and like I said, I think it's a good. I often see your position, Patty, as since you have that regulatory requirement and charge from the state, you kind of can be perceived as standing in the way of people getting what they want, right? Someone's about to build a new home, someone's about to put the pool in, and it's your job to say, well, what about this? What about that? Right. This has got to be safe, right? But I think these classes and this type of interaction gives people the opportunity to take a step back without the pressure of the kids screaming at them that they want the pool in, to understand what it is that you do and provide that context. And it's been great. So
I think it's kind of like what you said with like the teaching aspect, with what you've been teaching at the Voc School, for like residents, and even for me, it's so helpful like when you present this stuff in like the general terms that like anyone can understand, because then we're able to kind of digest the information even more, and it builds like the understanding between your department and the residents, and I feel like that always helps to bridge disagreements or different interpretations of things. You guys can kind of find like common ground a lot easier. So I think it's been so awesome seeing over the last year how many of these sessions that you've done and like how many you already have planned for like the first 6 months of the year. Like I think that's a big step for like us as a town for building understanding of like our departments with the community.
Yeah, I do think if I were I put myself in their shoes, if I were on the other side, I would not know, some of these things, that homeowners want to do when they have a project. You just don't know where to start. So you try to put yourself in their shoes. Yeah. So we can turn the page to the new year and 2025, and we always like to do one little last segment that we call, we talk about Shrewsbury with our vision goal to be the best local government in the world. So we like to call this segment the best. So kind of future best, what are we all looking forward to in 2025? Any thoughts on that, Patty? What I really like to see is that, you've surrounded yourself like with some good people in town. So John Holbrook, Julie Tierney, Kevin Weigold, I think that having their expertise and having departments work together, which is what mostly John and Julie, and you could say their titles, I feel like, what they really have brought a lot of departments together. And with us working together, you never want to, have one department review some type of project one way, but then have another department have another comment on it that maybe isn't seeing eye to eye. So we have been working together really well.
Great.
And I like to continue with that. And then, of course, expanding OpenGov, which is our online platform, and make it more user-friendly, because we will be having to update it at the end of this month for ADUs to give people an option to submit it. So we will have to, make that more user-friendly. But and one other thing that I never thought we would get to is to be totally paperless. All of our documents being online. When someone has a public records request or needs something, they're requesting something about a property, we do our best to, research everything that is been scanned in, all of our documents, or that's been a more recent online application. So we can respond pretty quickly to the public's requests. But I do think that you're fostering a very collaborative community within the building to work together.
Yeah, thank you. And the building inspector's office, you guys have been way out front on this whole paperless and online permitting
Yeah.
through several iterations, and now we're all trying to catch up to you through OpenGov. And Julie Tierney's been great at helping us be able to see that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know that we saw that before, some of that interpretation came, in these other departments, but it is coming together really nice, and we appreciate all their work and your work on OpenGov and continuing to move that forward. So that'll be interesting. I definitely agree. I'd like to see more of that in 2025. What are you thinking, Taylor?
Actually, mine is very similar to Patty's. It's just like in my role as well, I get the opportunity to work with all the departments. Like DPW, I meet with the divisions. I work with planning a lot. I've started to try and work with like police and fire a little bit as they start having more availability to do those type of things. So for 2025, I'm just looking to like keep collaborating, increasing collaboration where I can, and help all the departments like tell their story to the public, so they kind of can again build that mutual understanding of why we do what we do and how we do our best to serve the community.
That's great. So for me, I've been playing around, right, with artificial intelligence chat tools and things like that, and I think they can help production, right, or they can help create content and review documents. I'm kind of interested in seeing if there's broader applications for the town in 2025, 2026, like starting to think about that. Like, I know some communities have an AI chatbot on their website that just learns about like all the questions that get asked and really knows where all the information is on our website and the details behind that in our bylaws. But what other applications are there? I'm not a person that thinks, tools like AI is going to replace people, because we have so much work to do and so many proactive things that we don't get to do on a daily basis. But, who knows? Maybe in 20 years, AI will be reading the plans and comparing them to the code and helping you find those conflicts, or this won't work from a structural standpoint. I don't know, but really applying tools like that and more than just like the chat features, I think is something that will be interesting to think a little bit about in 2025. So that's something I'm interested in exploring and thinking about. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, it's been very useful so far.
Yeah.
We drew diagrams. We've used diagrams. You could put in draw a deck with these dimensions and show a diagram, and then we could take it from there to use sample documents.
Oh, that's cool.
We can.
See, Patty's ahead of us.
I know, literally.
Actually, I'm going to say that this is again with my conversations with the assistant town manager in the morning. You could take a document and save you some time and ask it to summarize to you. And actually letter writing too, to get the key points written, and then ask it to help you write it. So I've been a big fan because it's a time saver.
It's a huge time saver. And excited to see where it goes and how we can apply it, and for efficiency and effectiveness and thoroughness purposes. I think there's many opportunities ahead. So should be fun. We'll see what 2025 brings. Patty, I want to thank you for coming on the Town Manager Download. This has been another great conversation, and we appreciate your time and coming in and sharing your knowledge and the work that you're doing as the building commissioner of the town of Shrewsbury. I just want to remind listeners, if you have a question or a comment, you can reach us at tmdownload@shrewsburyma.gov. On behalf of Taylor Galusha, I'm Kevin Mizikar. Thank you for listening.